China is the world's largest economy by purchasing power, the biggest trading nation, a major lender across the globe, and home to industries that rival the West. Yet, in the global imagination, it is still ranked second. When people talk about China's rise, the conversation usually begins with infrastructure. The high-speed trains that cut across the country at hundreds of miles an hour, the megacities that rise seemingly overnight, AI labs producing research that gives Silicon Valley executives second thoughts. That's hard power, the visible kind, the kind you can measure, chart, and headline. Now compare that with the United States, the country that's still considered by many as the global leader. Yet its high-speed rail plans remain stuck in committee. Its bridges and roads crumble faster than they can be repaired. Airports sit frozen in Cold War layouts. Besides that, the United States continues to have one of the weakest healthcare systems among developed nations. Expensive, unequal, and often inaccessible. On the infrastructure scoreboard, the US no longer appears to be leading. So if power were just about development, China would already be on top. And yet, it is still framed as the challenger, not the leader. Why? Hello, and welcome. In this video essay, we'll explore why it isn't that simple. Because beyond hard power lies something harder to measure: soft power, the ability to shape culture, imagination, and memory. Quick heads up, the narration you're hearing isn't a studio recording, so if it sounds a little different or synthetic, thanks for rolling with it. It's not Morgan Freeman, but the analysis is the premium part. If you're new here, we unpack the systems and stories shaping our world: politics, culture, and power. Subscribe and hit the bell for more context-rich content. Before we dive in, here's the roadmap. First, the problem. China has power but limited sway. Second, the gap. The United States still dominates the global narrative. And third, the solution. China could channel soft power through neutral, English-speaking countries, allowing its culture and stories to travel further worldwide. Let's dive in. As you think about it, what's the last Chinese cultural product you truly loved? Not Jackie Chan nostalgia, not Kung Fu Panda, that's Hollywood. TikTok? Sure, it's Chinese-owned, but the culture that thrives there isn't distinctly Chinese, it's global. For many people, not much comes to mind. If you do have one, share it in the comments. Meanwhile, US-based culture reaches everywhere. Marvel at the box office, hip-hop on every streaming service, TV shows subtitled into dozens of languages, even English slang slipping into daily conversations worldwide. It is a current that does not stop flowing. So, what explains this gap? China has speed and scale, but the West, and especially the United States, still commands imagination. And imagination lasts longer. A skyscraper impresses for a decade. A story can live for generations. So why hasn't China cracked it yet? History plays a role. Colonial empires gave the West a massive head start. The English language became the global default. Hollywood supplied the myths the world still repeats. And former colonies, even long after independence, remain tied to old centers of culture, like a lingering attachment. And here's the paradox. Even with political gridlock, social conflict, and unresolved racial tensions, people still look to the United States. Sometimes reluctantly, sometimes critically, but still drawn into its cultural orbit. But strategy matters too. China has tried to build culture the way it builds railways, top-down, centrally planned, with the expectation that people will simply board. But culture does not spread that way. Few people casually learn a new language. Even fewer binge-watch shows that resemble state projects. Culture spreads when it is experienced as shared, when it is recognized as belonging to others as well. So maybe the solution isn't to force the world into Mandarin, or to build a parallel Hollywood from scratch. That is a heavy lift. Another option could be to look outward. Let's hear this out. China could put real weight behind creative industries in neutral, English-speaking countries. South Africa, Jamaica, Singapore, maybe Kenya or Fiji. Places with deep storytelling traditions, but without Hollywood's global reach. And there are already examples showing how this can work. The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon's spin-off, is set in France and filmed largely in French. Its second season shifts to Spain, with Spanish at the center of the story. global audiences still tuned in, proving that franchises can thrive while embracing local languages and settings. Far from alienating viewers, it gave the series freshness and authenticity. That is the same principle China could apply, backing storytelling rooted in other regions, told in their own voices, while still carrying new cultural strands into the global conversation. Now here's the strategic kicker. This isn't just about bypassing Mandarin. It's about balance of power. If audiences worldwide start turning to Kingston or Nairobi for their blockbusters, the United States' monopoly on cultural imagination becomes weaker. Those neutral hubs gain prestige. Their stories remain authentic to them. But China sits quietly behind the curtain, funding, distributing, and nudging global culture in a new direction. And it wouldn't stop there. Because when China is the engine behind those studios, elements of Chinese culture travel with them. A co-produced series might weave in Chinese aesthetics, values, or story arcs. A global hit could normalize Chinese perspectives without ever needing to switch to Mandarin. Imagine a Bali studio producing hit series in English, backed by Chinese investment, yet featuring Chinese actors, locations, or philosophical themes. Or a Johannesburg film house putting out African blockbusters where Chinese heroes or partners play a natural role. The culture would remain rooted in those regions. But piece by piece, Chinese culture becomes part of the mix, shared through neutral hubs with global reach. This strategy does two things at once. It offsets the United States' cultural dominance and quietly spreads Chinese culture across the globe, disguised as shared global storytelling. Because infrastructure proves you can build, culture proves you can inspire. And inspiration has a strange kind of durability. Bridges crack, airports age, skylines change, but stories endure. They are passed down, remixed, carried into places their originators never imagined. That is the edge the West, and particularly the United States, has held onto. Sometimes by design, sometimes by history, sometimes by sheer inertia. And it is why, even as the United States struggles with aging infrastructure, fragile healthcare, and messy politics, its cultural footprint remains larger than life. China has shown the world it can bend steel, pour concrete, and harness algorithms at a scale few thought possible. The harder question is this: can it also bend narratives? Can it shape memory? Until then, China may remain the paradox it is today. Number one in scale, but still perceived as number two in power. So what do you think? Is soft power really the missing piece in China's rise? And if so, would using neutral, English-speaking creative industries not only shift the balance of power, but also serve as the perfect channel to propagate Chinese culture worldwide? Or is culture too organic to be engineered at all? Drop your thoughts below. I'll pin the sharpest take. Thanks for watching. If politics, culture, and the systems behind the headlines matter to you, hit subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Share this or leave a comment to keep the conversation going. It's the best way to support what we do. The views and opinions in this video are for discussion and informational purposes only. This content is designed to spark reflection and dialogue. Thanks again. Catch you in the next rollout.